So we are here. Special bonus episode of Conspiranormal, guys. We are going to talk about the Strange Realities Conference, finally. And our experiences there and the people that we met. And then we, as part of this little bonus episode, we've got our roughly 45 minute Q&A session that we are going to play for you guys.
We are back to the future now after the Strange Realities.
That's right.
Conference is over with.
We're recording this thing about 10 days later.
And as we envisioned and manifested, it was a blast and success.
It was indeed. Well, let me get your thoughts about it first before we go into mine, because mine was just mostly timing, speakers, and hectic stuff all day behind the scenes. You were more just talking to people and getting to know them than I really was that day.
Yeah, I got to shake a lot of hands and kiss a lot of babies.
Shake a lot of babies, kiss a lot of hands.
Just out there campaigning.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, we really didn't expect as many people to come from out of town. That was really cool. And then,
we had a few surprises.
Then we met a lot of people from town, too, who we didn't know. And that was really cool also.
Right.
Not to mention, of course, we had a blast with all the speakers who are our friends. It was just great success.
So let's go down the rundown of who we had speaking, who was there, and we'll talk about kind of like everybody's speaking. So first of all, I started the whole thing off, gave my little introduction, my little spiel, at about 10 o'clock that morning. And we did this, guys, at SIR Nashville. It was a perfect place to do it. We had everything that we needed. We had a PA system. We had a sound guy in Rob. We had a projector and a screen, chairs,
nice clean
tables,
facilities.
Nice bathroom, couches outside. I was able to put tables outside.
Refrigerator.
That's right. Refrigerator in the room where people could put beer. We could put water, that kind of stuff. We also had your little cooler.
Live tarot reading.
Heather got there a little later on in the day, and she racked up on the tarot readings, man.
Awesome.
She was doing one after the other.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I said, I got up there, gave my little spiel, gave my little introduction. Mark Anthony Wyatt was up there at 10 o'clock. He was or about 10:15 or so. We started a little bit early. He was talking about some of the folklore aspects in Cornwall. Now, keep in mind, I did not get to see a lot of the speakers because I was kind of running around.
Right.
I was also just had my little timer on my phone and giving like 10-minute warnings to each speaker, 5-minute warnings, whatever. After Mark, we had Timothy Renner come on. He talked about the Pennsylvania wild man flap of the 1920s. That was only about a 45-minute presentation.
Really
and
cool.
Then we broke for lunch.
Yeah.
And I actually stayed there in the venue. I think you went off to lunch somewhere.
Yeah, I went off with who all? Jerry. And
Jerry Ablan was there from Docs Mente and Cruising with Steak. He was there. He was the first to buy a ticket, by the way.
Yeah, he was real cool to hang out with, and unfortunately I had to round them all up, and we had to take our food to go because we ended up on like the other side of town. But
yeah, and Joe Joe was coming up right after that, and I think I was about 5 minutes to the time that Joe was supposed to be there. I'm like, where are you? You're supposed to get up here and speak, man. And he got up there and he spoke about his Ghost Pro VR technology.
And then they did the demonstrations, which was really cool. It was really cool to have an element like that in the conference.
And he had some relatives there as well.
Yeah, like a whole family reunion come out. And
one or two of them were helping him with his demonstrations. And then was Zach after him, or was that Josh? I'd have to look at the schedule of what we did. I think that it was Josh that came right after Joe. I'm pretty sure. And Josh spoke about alien human hybrid lore, went through like the fairy folk and kind of the combination of all of it. Well, actually, Zach Hunt was before Josh. Zach Hunt got up there, talked about Unraptured, his book Unraptured, and then Josh was after that, Alien Human Hybrid Lore, and that was followed by Tim Banal, who talked to us about the bizarre world of the flat Earth theory, and then we went to dinner break, and we got pizza for everybody.
Hung out a little bit. That was about an hour. My cousin Jason, who was there filming, shout out to him for filming it. He filmed the conference, and he also emceed, dressed up like Macho Man Randy Savage. Excellent job.
Yeah, very, very much so. After the dinner break, we had Guy Malone. Talked about his Roswell in 1947, what really happened. Talked about the possibility of what happened at Roswell, what crashed there was some kind of experimental aircraft that also had human experimentation. And that was followed up by Timothy Renner and Joshua Cutchin together presenting about their book, Where the Footprints End, which is about a more supernatural theory of Bigfoot.
Right.
That was then the Q&A panel discussion. And then the music. Jason played during the dinner break. He played my uncle's songs, his father's songs, and then we had a couple of acoustic acts come up, and then Goat Herder
knocked it out of the park.
Which Jedediah almost left his guitar. Like, he did leave his guitar there, by the way, and Rob had to get it to him the next morning. And then your friend DJ Mike Vulcan.
Yeah.
Actually played the Coast to Coast theme, or the theme from The Chase from Midnight Express.
Yeah, it was an awesome time, and we have all this thoroughly documented on video, multiple shots. It's just to be seen what we're going to do with it exactly. We want to, we definitely want to provide that value to people who came out, and not just like give it out to anyone. But it's really awesome, and the production of it is a lot better than almost any video production of a conference that I've seen before. We probably will, not too far in the near future, put out at least on public on YouTube, at least some clips, the Q&A. Yeah. I'm just gonna have to figure out all that. We do have a lot of footage, so I'm just gonna have to figure out exactly what we're gonna do. And we have audio of everything too. We have audio, which you're gonna hear some of that, right? So, let's talk a little bit about the people that came out. Yeah, that we met. So we had kind of a interesting crowd. First night, I met Jennifer and her husband from Arkansas, and we hung out and got burgers. She's a and hot chicken. Word of the Road Go fan, and Conspiranormal fan, Jennifer Campbell. And they really hit off with Tim Banal talking about wrestling and the paranormal wrestling crossover. Yeah, I was too busy picking up people from the airport at that point. Yeah. So we had fun, and then at the conference we met Jerry from Nox Mente and Cruising with Steak. We met Eric from Minnesota. Yeah, and Eric actually was here for most of the week. We got to hang out again. He was a blast. We met a local guy named Jonathan, who's really cool and like a really big fan. Another fan of Grimerica also. Yeah, he actually went on Cruising with Steak with the guys that the next day and gave a nice glowing report of the conference. Yeah, and more of our local friends, Joel and Heather was there, of course, giving the tarot readings. Right. My friend Sharice was there. My friend Mara was there. It was a great time. Your friend Kent? Kent, of course, Kent showed up, and we had a real good time, man. A lot of fellowship, a lot of talking about crazy shit, and I think we provided that type of experience that we wanted to. Yeah, we did. We had a few people. Also, we had Katie from Birmingham, who's the only person that we gave a flyer to that actually came to the conference. Of all the thousands of flyers that I passed out, she was the only person, so shout out to her. And Sarah from Memphis. You got to talk to, but I never got to speak to. Yeah, definitely. It was real fun, man. There's a lot of cool people from out of town, and our local people, new local people, and the guests and speakers. It was great. And also, don't forget the staff that we had. We had our little staff there. I had my friend Hallie, her boyfriend Max. They manned the front of the conference.
Hallie was also did the microphone, passed the microphone around for the people asking questions in the Q&A.
Dr. Future was there.
She designed the shirt as well.
Yeah.
So that people bought. Had a few people buy the shirt. And also Luke was there.
Oh yeah.
As the guy manning his very important job of manning the snack table. Which he and Eric got to bond most of the day
over the Cheetos.
And also Rob, don't forget Rob. Rob was the main guy.
Rob was back.
Yeah, and his friend Bob came down from Louisville and helped him out a little bit. So Rob definitely shone through on this one. He was did quite a good job. He also recorded audio recorded the entire thing. This is Jason videography.
The whole thing could not have happened without Rob.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally glad that he was there and he was a part of it. So yeah, I mean these well, so did we mention, I think Nikki was another guy from that listens to Grimerica that came as well. Friends with Jill, of course they all know each other from the chat rooms and all that. So he was there. So we got a nice little Grimerica Cruising with Steak crew came out as well. So I want to thank those guys, and thank the people that promoted, that weren't there, that helped promote it, like Grimsteak, James Cruz,
and that was
guys,
probably the most
well.
Effective kind of promotion that we did. Period. Was
it was
the swap casting and the playing the commercials on the other podcasts.
Yeah, and we did Facebook ads. I don't think we got anybody that came from the Facebook ads. I don't think we got really anybody except Katie, as I mentioned, that, she, the only person we gave a flyer to, just saying.
Yeah.
Out of the thousands of people, probably, well, not thousands, but there was a lot of flyers, guys. We got at least about 1,000 out there. So I was taking the flyers and I was actually turning them into signs, writing candy $1, drinks $1. I was finding other ways to use them, just giving them away to people, take flyers.
Yeah, right.
Because we had so many of them. But it went well. It went well. We were on time. I got a lot of praise from Banal, Cutchin, Timothy Renner, those guys. They said that we were on time.
Ran a tight ship.
We had also on the Q&A session, we had a couple of other people. Like you said, we had Dr. Future was there. I asked Dr. Future, I was like, Mike, do you want to speak? And he spoke anyway, guys, because when Zach Hunt was there, he asked at least a good 20-minute question. So, and I got him to announce that he's putting out his book. That was for about 10 minutes. I think we talked a little bit about that. And he was part of the Q&A session. And also part of the Q&A session was Brent Rains, who was on one of our last shows.
Which will be the second to last, I think.
Yeah, second to last by the time this is out. And also Johnny McMahon was there, who is the host, who's been on the show before. He's also the owner of the Fringe Radio Network, which is the first podcast network that we were ever on. And his friend Mark Britton was also there. He's good friends with Johnny, and also with Mike, with Dr. Future. So I think that's a good rundown.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody there was a few other people that we spoke to. A couple of people, I think that they said they heard it from, they saw it online or whatever they did the search.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of camaraderie.
But what we have, 40 to 45 people?
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'd say probably 50 at the peak.
I think it's a good start.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good start. And I think that we can see now that, the podcast, that was definitely our most successful, was the podcast, little podcast networking thing that we did. So is there anything else that we want to add about it?
No, just that, this was our first try at doing this, and we're real interested in continuing and doing more of these in the future. Both bigger and smaller events possibly. So we're just experimenting right now. there's nothing like getting together with that many like-minded people or really interesting people and just being able to hang out and talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, we're looking towards Strange Realities 2020, what that may be. If we do one, I'm really thinking about possibility of doing a 2-day event, because I think we packed a lot into one day.
Yeah, it was a lot, and I'm really happy how many people stayed through everything too. But I understand if you needed just a break from the from the information.
Yeah, there was a ton of information. I'm hoping also next year that Soraya can come.
Yes,
I think that
would have
that may be a distinct possibility,
because that would have been the whole crew pretty much.
Yeah, very much so. I also would love to get Ren down here if he could, if he wants to come down. So we will see. Got some ideas in my mind. I think that at least by probably February or March, if we do one, we will be announcing by then. So guys, just stay tuned. But you won't hear too much about Strange Realities Conference
for a little
very
bit.
much. We beat it to death.
But then, like we said,
I know there are people out there that if they could have come, they would have.
Yeah, and some of the people stayed behind also a couple days, so we got to hang out on Sunday and show some folks the craziness of Broadway.
Yeah, we took Banal and Cutchin down to Broadway.
Yep, and it was pretty wild. I saw the neon lights reflecting in Banal's eyes.
Yeah, it was an experience, but yeah, it was good to hang out with those guys, and it was kind of an extended weekend too, because Eric and Jonathan, we took a little around the Synchro Mystical tour of Nashville on Wednesday, so it kind of lasted into the week a little bit for us too. So
it had taken over our lives for the past couple months, and then it continued.
We are definitely glad, guys, to be back doing Just Conspire Normal for a little while. I think that's probably where we're at, and it was an undertaking. I'm very happy that I did it. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of work.
We learned a lot. We're learning by mistakes. So
yeah. All right, I think that's it. I think without further ado, let's let them hear the Q&A session.
I was thinking about the lady in white and
it's on. All right, good.
Didn't she have
Do we pass this down or what?
the giant
He has
owls
one.
that always?
Do they have one down there? Oh, okay, they got one down
Or at
there.
least that's what people thought were owls. I just wonder if that was sort of the beast
Testing 1, 2, 3.
cohort.
We do have
Early association.
it may be
40
we do
minutes.
have what we call big hoots. How many? That reports of big owls along with big.
What's Guy Malone doing? Is he coming up? Yeah, come on, man.
Very ancient association. Who was still babies, I think.
Didn't make it to the restaurant.
What's up? Hello, everyone.
Say a small change got rained on with the Zone 38.
I don't know. I've already got this. That guy over there made me repeat some weird thing about an overland king, so I don't want to
It's like a Politburo event.
mixed up in this.
40, but let me know when you're at 40.
Exactly.
2 minutes before, 5 minutes before, is like I've been doing.
The man they call
By
Hawk.
far the most organized and tightly run.
Right.
It's good.
Military precision.
It's been great.
Part of it.
You tell him Rob had.
Dude, do you need a microphone? Are you gonna start up? You want this one?
Yeah,
Around your-
we'll start off unless this guy wants to start.
Rob had specific instructions to turn off the mics. If anybody kept on rambling over time. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Rob censoring.
Nice. All right. Are we good? Are we recording, Rob? Like I always used to ask you? Okay. Where's Jason at? Okay, he's right there.
Count me in.
He's videoing the floor right now.
I'm convinced. Just give us the word, Jason. The video of the floor.
If it's
He
not
started
observed,
looking at us and the battery power miraculously went down.
I'm gonna find the room and walk into it and be like, oh, I'm sorry.
What's going on down there, buddy?
have you never met him?
I know. I have friends who know him really well, but I've never met him. Though. Do you need another memory card?
Man,
We can start. Okay. Okay. And welcome to the Q&A session / This is going on the Conspiranormal podcast.
guys. Thank you for being here at the Strange Realities Conference. I want to thank all the people at the stage. Now, the way this is going to work, and the reason I said to kind of hold some questions that you guys may have, is that so we could do this at the end of the night. And Hallie over here has got the mic. You guys just motion for her whenever you need it, if you got any questions. But I wanted to introduce a couple other people. This is Brent Rains down here. It was too late for me to get him as part of this. If I had known that he existed 3 or 4 months ago, I would have definitely had him, because he only lives about 100 miles away from here.
That's correct.
So
I wasn't here earlier. I just sort of tulpered in, but I'm here now.
yeah. And this is Johnny McMahon, the owner of the Fringe Radio Network, which was the first podcast network that Conspiranormal was ever on, was the Fringe Radio Network. That's actually before he owned it, but he's been a big supporter. And I also want to introduce Dr. Future down here as well. Big inspiration for me, big mentor. Very important that he's here. And of course, Timothy Renner, Tim Banal, Joshua Cutchin. This guy right next to me is Serfiel. He's my co-host. All right. And also, this guy right here was instrumental in getting this done. He's been kind of in the background, but he's helped make this poster over here, this banner, which you guys need to take pictures in front of at some point. Mark Anthony Wyatt, Joe Damari, at the end, Guy Malone. So I want to, before we get questions from the audience, Brent, you've been here most of the day. You've been observing, and Johnny will tell you, you can kind of go on with this too. What do you guys thought about what some of the things that you've heard?
It was great. I love Joshua Cutchin. Great. I like the flat earth. Just great. How does he say that? You guys are beautiful people. It's just great. It's great. Believe me. No, it was great. I learned a bunch of things, and I'm proud to have you on the Fringe Radio Network.
Yes, sir.
And that's all.
Yeah. And Where Did the Road Go is on there as well. So, Brent, some thoughts, man. I mean, this guy right here has been a ufologist. He's been in all this weird stuff since he was 14.
53 years.
And he's corresponded with guys like John Keel, which he has a book about, which you guys should buy in the back. So, Brent, any thoughts about what you've seen?
I'm very impressed. And this was not the ordinary lineup you get to going to one of the mainstream conferences, UFOs or cryptozoology. I mean, those conferences are based on trying to prove a certain common belief system mainstream. And what I saw here was a real open-minded, objective exploration of all the different alternative possibilities that exist. And that's what, my book on John Keel, he was one of those early pioneers. And it also has a foreword by Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who helped me tremendously to prepare the book and passed away just 5 days after it came out on Amazon. And she was, one hell of a researcher. So, anyway, thank you.
Okay. Let's open the floor for questions. So, who's got a question? Sure, why not?
I'm sorry, I don't know anybody's name, so I'm just going to say.
Okay.
The Wildengeist person? Yes. Joshua.
The Wildengeist person.
So I'm just curious, you were saying, there's the whole poltergeist, and this is like a poltergeist in the wilderness, but you're not, I guess my question is, you're not in any way saying that all Bigfoot sightings necessarily are Wildengeist. There could be two separate things, right?
Right. I think it's a mistake that a lot of us make in talking about these things in general, is that we want them to all be one sort of monolithic thing.
Okay.
I mean, the longer I go into the UFO field, the more I start to separate things in the sky from the contact experience. Not that there isn't some overlap, there's a significant overlap. But I think we need to be comfortable enough with nuance to say that sometimes it might be a nuts and bolts flying saucer in the sky, and sometimes it's much more akin to a shamanic experience or something on a more spiritual level. I think Tim's a little bit less charitable of flesh and blood Bigfoot than I am nowadays, but one of the things that I've said oftentimes is that I wonder if there isn't something that is using sort of the Bigfoot thing as a mask. So if you look into the work of some people that I really admire, like Mike Cleland, who talks about owls. Mike. It's not that Mike doesn't think that owls aren't really actual, flesh and blood birds, but sometimes the owls are weirder, and sometimes I wonder if myself, with what I'm looking into, if there aren't actual large hairy hominids that are completely quote unquote natural running around the woods, and sometimes whatever this other intelligence is sometimes picks that up as a skin. Right. Again, I think Tim's not into that idea.
That would be accurate.
Yeah. But I'm excuse me. I try to sit with the reality of my own shortcomings, and so not necessarily all things. It's just it's more of a thought experiment than anything else.
Right. Just another alternative theory.
Yes.
But not necessarily negating another theory.
No. I mean, it might.
Right.
It might not.
But that's not your point. You're not trying to say this is the way it is and that's not the way it is.
No, I mean, there are very few things that I'll say that on.
Cool.
That I'll commit to like that. Yeah.
All right. Now I have another question, if I may, real quick, for the Nazi UFO person whose name I don't know. Sorry. So, just the thing that came right to my mind was, back in 1947, even before the space program, when you're sending something out into space, monkeys or dogs or anything, you're basically putting them on the top of a rocket and you're shooting that rocket up into space. You have, really, really ancient computers that are making it fly around and then it lands and you go get it. But, to actually have something fly an aircraft in 1947, are you, to think that, they were putting a child or something. What was the pierogies?
Progeria.
Oh, progeria. Yes, like a child with progeria. In that, is the thought that it was like an automaton or it's radio controlled, because they weren't teaching the child to fly the plane, right?
Correct. I don't think so either. That radio and remote controlled possibilities have been included in this presentation in the past, and I've had people follow up with me, actually giving me documentation of where the technology for remote control was.
And that was available at that time.
And another thing that was happening was you were having to use real balloons, helium balloons, from that one photo I showed of Mike Heiser, just to get them off the ground, to where they might not have even been propelled, moving around in the way that we picture flying saucers going.
Been taking them up.
They might have been floating just to see, can you get a human to 30,000 feet and they still survive? And just put it on a balloon to where they weren't actually piloting a craft, they were just in it as a test subject, is the best theory to answer your question. I agree with you. It's a great question and it comes up often, actually.
If I recall, there was primitive drone technology used in World War II, right?
That is what I've heard also. I wasn't there, but...
Okay, who else has a question?
It's all guesswork, given my age. It's all guesswork and a little bit of research too.
Okay, I'm very impressed by all your presentations, and Dr. Future, I'm very much familiar with you. Everything seems to be research based, but also experiential. And I just wondered if you would share some moment where you knew you had encountered the truth, or something that drove you to continue this exploration.
Questions for everybody? Yeah. Well, who wants to take it?
I'm a childhood experiencer. I grew up believing I'd been abducted by aliens, so I would have had more than average motivation to get to the bottom line of the truth. And it's online at my webpage. I do an autobiographical thing of what all the stuff I believe happened to me in childhood. And it was way before Whitley Strieber ever wrote his book, but I was experiencing a lot of the same things. So I wanted to know the truth. Your question was, when did you arrive at the truth? And it was like, I don't know if I have today still. I'm still asking questions. I've got some answers, but because of my experiences and my desire to maybe stop them, I had more than the average impetus to want to get to the bottom of, are these really aliens? What's happening to me? How do I make it stop? So that's where it started for me as an experiencer, not as a researcher.
Well, I'll just speak about myself. At age 14, I got interested, and I started collecting all the data I could get. And I had started by reading Frank Edwards' Flying Saucer Serious Business, which was the regular classic nuts and bolts mainstream theme of an extraterrestrial visitation. And so at that time, I thought, okay, it's either what the Air Force says, just weather balloons, temperature inversion of Venus on the horizon, has explanations that are natural, or it is actually the spaceships. And then I began to read articles by people like Jacques Vallée, the French-born scientist who had alternative ideas, and John Keel, who I've just written a book about. And I began to realize there were a lot of complexities to the situation, and I began to interview people myself and traveled across country to meet people, researchers, experiences. And I don't have the answer now, but I'm not as certain as I was when I was age 14 that I had figured it all out. And I just know that there's a lot more to it. I think that understanding more about physics and consciousness, and there's a lot of anomalies there that we haven't just figured all out. So I'm still exploring.
This body of research I'm doing that detects ghosts, I guess it was just Ghost Asylum about 4 years ago. I was invited to help the guys out. They saw me posting something called a ghost pad. I designed a thermal reactive pad for ghost footprints. That's probably useful in a lot of what you guys are talking about. But I took it to a conference. Nobody bought it. I was like, are these researchers serious? Because I'm showing them new technology, but nobody is really interested. So I gave a bunch of free ones out. Then the coolest thing was the Tennessee Wraith Chasers saw that the free stuff, and they called me and they said, Joe, we want your help in the technology part of our show. And ever since then, I knew I hit something big when I downloaded the MIT software that the MIT researchers were working on. Then I put in paranormal stuff on top of it. And ever since then, I see ghost hands coming out of walls. So that's through video. So I'm like, there's something here, and I can't stop not making it better. And I think it's maybe an evolution thing for me. Like, I'm just, instead of being bored walking around in a circle at the mall, I'm like, I need to do this. This is more interesting. So that's basically it for me, just
Well,
MIT.
I mean, I know you, and you, even before you discovered any of that stuff, you had a lot of profound personal experiences.
Yeah, those really didn't make me want to scientifically figure them out. They were just interesting, and I thought they were fake at first until
you didn't trust the experience.
Yeah, I want a computer to tell me that it's real, basically. Like it's more scientific to me, because you have tons of psychologists, saying that it's just in our minds. So I'm like, well, if a computer can say, you can't say that's fake. It's a computer, it's just a program saying, it's like redrawing a graph of the environment you're in. You know, it's saying there's an anomalous structure here and it freaking looks like a humanoid. I'm like, okay, so we're on to something. You know, to me, yeah, the MIT was eye-opening. It said that there was something special, you know. But my childhood stuff, mostly, I don't know. I can't say it's a dream is real. I just still cannot say that. But it possibly could be half real. So,
Any question from the audience? Okay. This is Chris, by the way. He's going to be playing for you in just a second. Yeah, his last name is By the Way.
Yes, I'm Chris, by the way. So this is a question for any one of you up there. So do you believe that, like an encounter with the supernatural, would it be an act of aggression against the human race? Or like a random act as if like a person were to come across like a bear in the woods?
This is the human race, Terrence McKenna would probably say. I think that we're so baked into what this is that it's inextricable from who we are. I don't think it's necessarily always good or bad. I just think it's part of the human experience, and I think that we've been suppressing it for the longest time. That's my own 2 cents. Anybody else?
What's the question?
I think it's in nature. It's we're still discovering why and what it is and why it's there and what it's doing.
I don't really know.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Sorry. Still getting over the beer thing.
Hey guys, I really thoroughly enjoyed the parts I was here for. Forgive me for missing some stuff, and thus my question might be, touching on something you already touched on, but something that kind of, I wouldn't say puzzles, but certainly makes me curious, the concept of how these beings might actually be us from the future. Is that something that a lot of people talk about?
Dr. Future. Here, I'll try that one. Yeah, try it. Yeah, people talk about it. It's one of the... I think Brad Steiger had a list of like maybe 13 or more things that UFOs could be, and that's on the list. So it's entirely possible. It to me, I suppose it's just as plausible, I guess, as like that they're aliens from another planet, right? It stands to reason. We don't know what they are, so.
Well, getting away from the UFO part of it a little bit and talking about the paranormal encounters. I'm asking because I want to learn. I've learned so much from this already that I want to, talk to y'all when I get a chance behind the scenes here and get some references or, go look this up in the podcast or whatever. But do you think there's any chance that, well, of course there's any chance, that some of the ghost images that we might see or encounter could be a diminished self as a result of time travel?
Interesting. So you're saying like that? You're saying like a ghost photo could be a time traveler? You're postulating that?
The gentleman that was talking about the technology was talking about how he has physically been able to see like a hand come through.
Right.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that has anybody discussed the idea that time travel would present to us a diminished self?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Could only manifest in what would look to us as a spiritual.
Right, like say like a situation where let's say like 100 years in the future, you can go into like a little room and it'll project you as a ghost essentially, for lack of a better term, a hologram or whatever. Yeah, to the past. It's kind of the idea.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
You can come, but you can't bring your luggage. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
as an observer, so that way you can't interfere with the actual time. That's entirely possible. I don't see why not.
What would make sense with that from quantum mechanics is that you can send information faster than the speed of light and in time, but that's all you can send. You can't send material, like physical material, but you can send information.
Which could be an image, right?
And that's what a hologram would be you're sending information. So they wouldn't violate any of the immutable laws about the past or perturb or anything like that. It's a very interesting idea you have there, is that you're basically being a watcher over what's going on, possibly, Right. And it would be interesting if it worked in reverse, too. And if you could get images that were really from then for you to view.
Sure.
So.
And you kind of pull it all out of the supernatural then, or what people describe as supernatural. You've actually got technological advance that just blows our mind.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense because they wouldn't want, if they could make time travel, they wouldn't want you going back into the past and breaking things. Yeah, so you'd have to be an observer, I think, presumably,
That would be safe, yeah.
I'll add this about the time travel concept. There is a researcher, Paul Eno, that is out there. I know Brent is familiar with him. He does talk about what he believes that hauntings and ghosts are really just everyone exists, that has ever existed, exists at the same time. That time isn't actually real, if that makes sense. So, yeah. There's no linear time.
I was just going to chime in while we're talking about this, how Tim and Josh, we've explored these ideas that the Bigfoot and these wild man archetypes are like could be our past self or some kind of relation to the ancient natural world, but then a lot of the alien UFO phenomenon could be like our future selves, and this is some kind of loop that all relates to us.
Yeah, I think if there's one takeaway that you can sort of get from a lot of the speakers at this conference, it's that whenever a certain idea is so popular that it reaches critical mass in any subject, but particularly in the paranormal, I think it's important to draw the conversation away back to alternate hypotheses, because none of this is proven in any sense or fashion. Even the objective reality of this stuff isn't proven. So why should we bother marrying ourselves to the idea that Roswell was a crash flying saucer, or that Bigfoot is an ape, or that UFOs come from extraterrestrials? I think the idea that we should entertain ideas like ghosts might be time travelers, I think it's healthy to engage in that, regardless of necessarily how much evidence there is for that. And really, honestly, there's not any less evidence for that than there is for a lot of the more popular ideas. I think it's really healthy to sort of engage with that push and pull, and I think it's something that Adam's done a really good job. Adam and Serfield have done a really good job of bringing some people together who are bringing some alternative ideas to light. So kudos to you guys.
I'll sort of take the hit and go where a lot of us kind of are afraid to go, I think, publicly. But at this particular conference, the biblical or Christian worldview has not been underrepresented like it is at so many other conferences like this. And at the risk of being the simpleton in the group, a lot of the phenomena has been, by many researchers, Keel, Valet, Carl Sagan, the word demonic has come up over and over again in all of our reading and all of our research. I don't want to reduce it to that it's the only explanation, but for the sake of the podcast, for the archiving, every one of us has stumbled across it, and we haven't disproven it, and we're not even motivated to disprove it. I think in this modern age, we just don't want to be the idiot that uses that word in a sentence in public anymore. But the other talk that I do that I think more known for than this Roswell one is Are Aliens Demons, or Evidences for Why Christian Fundies Call Aliens Demons. And like I said, I literally quote Jacques Vallée and Carl Sagan in that one too. A few of you have seen it. You're familiar with the point of view, but just I want to, without being politically incorrect or whatever the word is, and without being a sissy, when you're talking about Bigfoot, they scream like a banshee from hell, and all the other quotes you used, poltergeists and all that stuff. And my experiences are stopping abductions because they're paranormal or spiritual experiences, not aliens. That's well documented in this field too. I don't want it to go ignored. I don't want to push it on anybody, but I don't want that view to go ignored here as well.
Well, something that's a very strong folkloric trend to sort of build off of that. There's no shortage of places in America that are devils so-and-so. The idea that, for better or worse, a lot of demons in the European tradition were regarded as sort of hairy wild men. They all sort of got conflated wild men and wild women were conflated with demons. And if you look to places nowadays that are devils so-and-so or demons so-and-so, you'll find a strong correlation with Sasquatch reportings there too. So I'm not discounting it. I'm as a Christian myself, I wrestle with this like literally on a daily basis. I try to carve out a little wiggle room for some stuff that's in between and not quite good nor evil, and I don't know if that's, again, I'm pretty sure that's not theologically sound, but I think that many of us can agree that there is a strong possibility of a spiritual component of some sort to all this. Yes, please.
As far as I'm aware, I mean, sorry. Okay, I thought you turned it off. Well, it's like a default position. It's always demons. You hear it on all these ghost shows. It's a demon, it's a devil, and there's all this language that's thrown about. But we know that, even if we accept the Jesus story and everything, if you go back, this stuff all existed before. Sorry, this stuff all existed before we had Christianity. So whilst I respect it, and I was brought up in the church. I just feel that it's just like the go-to position all the time. If it's bad, it must be demon. Why can't they just, instead, they're not necessarily bad. They could be energy vampires, whatever. They have a need to survive on whatever they're feeding on. What we see as bad might not necessarily be bad.
You meet me on a bad day and I might be bad, right? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's about it. I can't really go much further.
Okay. We got time for a couple more questions from the audience.
Okay, this is for Josh and maybe anyone else who wants to weigh in on biblical interpretations of UFOs. You see Ezekiel's wheel reference, the wheels within wheels, and the beasts references a UFO encounter in some of the more esoteric writings, the more New Age writing about UFOs. But most people don't talk about the part where the entity that Ezekiel thinks is the voice of the Lord gives him a scroll to eat so he can carry the message to the Israelites. Does that story fall in with your food taboo series?
That's a great question.
That's a deep cut. Well done. Yeah. So yeah, I should have written about that in the book, and now I'm on the spot about it. I think it does. I think it speaks to a broader motif of internalization. Of the other internalization. He just give you a Slim Jim. we need a holiday every time this year where you pop in through my toilet and give me a Slim Jim like some sort of reverse Santa Claus. It's amazing. Well, if you ate that Slim Jim, much as Ezekiel ate his, no, I think it speaks to sort of broader motifs of consumption as a means of internalization. I think that I would be somebody who would say that the von Daniken approach of the gods were aliens is sort of an inversion of a greater truth, which is that the aliens were gods. But in terms of that story specifically, I think it really speaks to that concept of consuming that which you wish to become and consuming that to internalize it and to sort of hopefully have an outward expression of what you put into your body. I mean, if you look at something I talk about in the book, which obviously because you cited me and called me out for it, this concept of eating the god is prominent in a lot of different cultures. The idea of taking something of the divine, in this case, not necessarily the flesh of the divine and consuming it to become in one sort of communion with the other, but rather to sort of take something that has been given to you, which is in some sense a little bit more palatable. But it's a great question, and I think that you're absolutely right. It's consistent with that motif. There was a story that Mike Clellan consulted with me about before his latest release, which was Stories from the Messengers, about a woman who was compelled to eat some owl feathers and this was a weird owl. This wasn't like an owl. This was like a mic owl, which is its own thing. And after doing that, there was this whole like sort of shamanic thing that happened. So I think they're part and parcel. That's probably not as in-depth an answer as you were hoping for, but that's the best I got right now. So
okay, we got time, I think, for at least one more question. Heather.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Heather.
I've spent a lot of time out in the hallway when I really wasn't expecting to spend that much time, but it was an enjoyable afternoon, evening. So I missed if anybody spoke about it, but I recently picked up this book by a gentleman named Allegro, who talks about mushrooms as a divine vehicle and how the scriptures that are referencing food of the gods is actually speaking about mushrooms. If anyone would like to speak to that, I'd be delighted to hear your opinions.
So what was your question again? Specifically, I'm the food guy. The biggest guy at the
Hey, food guy.
Yeah. So specifically to mushrooms being the food of the gods.
Yeah, like mushrooms being actual, psychedelics as being the divine impetus.
There's such a robust history to unpack from there. I mean, if you take a look at sort of the presence of the mushroom, it sometimes appears.
It's my Terrence McKenna voice. There's some evidence that suggests that the fruit of the tree of knowledge was actually a mushroom. There's a fresco in one particular church in France that depicts that. Some people have taken this a step further to claim that early Christianity was actually, in fact, a mushroom cult, that they actually would exhume the bodies of dead saints and find mushrooms, which I don't know. I don't think the mushrooms you'd find growing on dead saints would be psychoactive, but maybe they were. And they would consume those, which is sort of where we get this idea of consuming the body and the blood and the flesh of Christ. The thing that Terrence McKenna talked about was his stoned ape hypothesis, which I'm not sure if that's in the book, but for anybody who doesn't know, the idea that apes as hunter-gatherers would sort of follow bovine herds, and the bovine herds would take a dump, and the dump would produce psilocybin, and small amount psilocybin enhances visual acuity, so you have better hunting methods, and you also have, in larger amounts, the effect of glossolalia, which is the idea of just making up words on the spot. That sort of idea, and that the idea was that from that emerged into speech. I personally, as much as I love Terrence McKenna, I get his A to B, and I get his B to C, and I get his C to D, but when I try to draw A to D, I just don't see that connection being quite as strong. But, I mean, the idea that the mushroom itself has not had some sort of forging role in mankind, I think would be, to take that stance would be a little bit naive, because it does seem to have opened a lot of entheogenic interactions with what people would perceive as the other. Whether or not that is actually something divine, I don't know. Whether or not that actually is the other, I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that there's something more behind the psychedelic experience than just mere hallucination. That's my own personal opinion, having not done a single psychedelic in my life. But if I think the idea of the mushroom as being the food of the gods is there. I think there's some weight to that particular theory. And tune into History Channel.
Could I make a comment on that real quick?
Plus, Stoned Ape is a really excellent stoner rock band name, for sure.
Stoned Ape, yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Dr. Future.
If I could give the church lady, fuddy-duddy answer, wet blanket, there may have been some fringe groups that would call themselves Christian. I'm sure probably there were. Even like today, where we have people that use ayahuasca in a sacred event that would even call themselves Christian. And you've got all sorts of groups like Santeria and things like that are far-flung. But I think historically, not only through Orthodox Christianity, but Judaism and their founding doctrines before, the whole core of sorcery was the use of ingesting of substances we now call entheogens that are for a ritual purpose to open these passages, and it was forbidden because it was an uncontrolled interaction with the spirit world and spirit beings. And it's sort of like when I had the privilege of speaking at a United Nations conference back in 2008 on religion and spirituality, and everybody else in the room, I think Edgar Mitchell was there, but the rest of them were spirit channelers and mediums and use these things. And I told them my understanding of history is when you have those interactions in the spirit world, you better check IDs. And so just like you don't go in a strange city and you go off in every alley without, as a tourist and not expecting you're going to have a problem, if you don't know who you're interacting with, you better be careful. And that's because I really respect the effect that some of these can have. Sometimes maybe it is just a pure hallucination. Your brain is rewired and you're starting to smell, green or something. But in many cases, and I think in certain things like ayahuasca and things like this and DMT, there are collective experiences that happen. You go back to not only in Genesis 6, which gives some of that information, but in the first book of Enoch, it makes it very clear that there are certain spirit beings who don't like us and who are jealous of us. They don't like our procreative capabilities. They don't like the favor that we were given. And it says that they were planted these roots and other kind of things to use in this means not for our good and as a doorway for them to exploit us. I have often wondered the fact that pure DMT, for example, as I understand it, won't work normally, will not activate your pineal gland.
If it's inhaled, it will. If it's ingested, it will not because of monoamine inhibitor.
Well, that's where I'm going.
Yeah,
that's where I'm going with this, the monoamine oxidase. And why they mix, as I understand it, MAOIs or inhibitors in the ayahuasca, so then it can have that interaction. I also understand that your regular digestive processes is what produces that inhibitor. And counterintuitively, extended periods of time of famine, where you actually, you don't take in food, can have a replicative effect. And that's why I think often, even Jesus said, he says, like some of these, like casting out demons, can only happen by prayer and fasting. But the key point is that when you're doing this, it's so effective that you better be talking to somebody in the spirit world, rather than just putting out, was it Tinder? I don't know. Use these things where you just sort of go out and find anybody. Go meet.
Or Grindr, depending on what you're.
I don't know. I really don't. I'm the old fogey.
I'm also
here.
a big Grindr fan.
So
that's how we met, actually. No, I really like your
Dr. Future.
Reality. I really like your alley analogy because I've often said that I don't think that anything about a Ouija board is necessarily inherently evil. Oh, hello. Oh, hey. Well, I don't think necessarily anything about a Ouija board is necessarily evil, but it's kind of like driving through a bad neighborhood with your windows down. Right. And sometimes I think sleep paralysis is you're in a bad neighborhood and your car is stalled and your windows are down.
And you got your wallet out counting your money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's a really apt analogy. I completely 100% agree.
Every year, I invite Dr. Future to Oregon to go on a mushroom trip with me.
I would love to see that.
So he's talked about being with somebody he knows. So Doc, you can be with somebody you know. Okay. We'll fly back out to Oregon. They're in bloom right now.
It's really not the mushrooms I'm scared of. It's Johnny that I'm scared of.
Okay. Josh is like, call me. Okay, I'll hook up with you. Yeah, we'll be there. No, I was saved on mushrooms in 1983. Almost killed me. I took 150 of them, which the dose is 25. I boiled 150 of them down into a cup of cream of mushroom slime, and it almost killed me. I was in the hospital for about 3 days. And anyway, I was brought down. I went down into the ground 300 feet, and with all the worms and the bugs. But they were killing each other, but not for food or survival, but for pleasure. And Jesus showed up and he goes, "This is sin." And that was the end of it. But that was the beginning of my walk. So I just love mushrooms.
You know,
I think that's
the only sad thing, Johnny, is I just wish we could say you were typical. It's hard to take Johnny data and apply it to the whole population. Yeah.
Tim, do you want
It's hard to follow that. The only thing with when you start talking about the Bible, it's like, to me, it's the same thing as when people say, oh, it's all jinn. The jinn explains everything. You're just giving different names for the same things we've been talking about folklorically forever. So if you're going to use the Bible as a proof, you first have to prove that the Bible is true. And you take it on faith, okay, that's your faith. But to the rest of us, it's the same folklore under a different name.
Right. I agree with that. Well, I can't dispute that. All I'm just saying is that's the information I'm familiar with, and that's who I take credible. And I don't see a whole lot of people. A lot of people who take DMT, for example, see things that absolutely terrify and horrify them, but yet they still seem to be attracted to it, almost like an addictive effect, which I think a lot of alien abduction experiences have been described that way, where people are absolutely terrorized, but somehow they want their terrorizer to come back again. So there's a lot I don't understand about that, and I don't plan to find out if I can help it.
All right. I think it's the idea of the trial, of going through, coming out the other end of a negative experience.
Guys, I think we are out of time. That's a good place to stop. If you guys have any other questions, these guys are available for the next 2 hours. Feel free to talk to them. We have music. I do want to thank everybody on this stage. Dr. Future, Timothy Renner, Tim Banal, Joshua Cutchin, Sephiel Stevenson, Mark Anthony Wyatt, Joe Damari, Johnny McMahon, Brent Raines, and last but not least, Guy Malone. And I want to thank a few other people as well. Jason Vonstein, my cousin, came all the way here from Atlanta to film this entire thing. Okay, I want to thank Max and Hallie over here for getting the pizza, manning the front, and also, where's Luke? That's the question we always ask. Where's Luke? And this guy right here that made it all possible, give him a big hand, Mr. Robbie Lenz. This is the guy that there would have been no conference without this guy right in the back. So, Mr. Robbie Lenz. And this guy right here, my co-host, my partner in this whole endeavor. We have been through this thing for like 2-3 months. This guy is great. You guys get to know him. Please take a picture. We're going to take a group picture of the speakers and the staff and everything. But please feel free to take a picture by the banner. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for coming to Strange Realities 2019, and hopefully there will be a Strange Realities 2020.